So I come on here all ready to talk about Money in the Bank, and literally right before I turn on the camera, I get this little headline that, oh, by the way, Roman Reigns has been suspended for 30 days for a wellness violation. Well, that explains the ending to Money in the Bank, at least somewhat, doesn't it? That's some shocking news, and it actually, it's very shocking. It'll be interesting to see what happens once he comes back. I'm sure he'll continue to be pushed pretty heavily, I would think. I mean, it's kind of like Randy Orton, where Randy Orton, I mean, has always been at like two and a half strikes, and yet always manages to have a spot on the roster and typically gets pushed pretty hard. However, there's a difference between being pushed hard and getting the Cena push, and we all thought Roman Reigns was going to be the next John Cena, whether, for better or worse. And quite honestly, I never wanted a repeat of John Cena after having lived through his era, which is still going. It's like, wow, do we really need another one? I kind of don't want that. But we all thought that Roman Reigns was going to be the next John Cena. And it makes me wonder, it's like, all right, now that he has this wellness violation under his belt, are they going to kind of pull back on that a little bit and not make him the supremo number one guy like we all thought he was going to be? That'll be interesting to see once he comes back. It looks like 30 days he'll be back in time for Battleground to do the big Shield triple threat main event. I'm reading that WWE knew about the wellness violation before Money in the Bank, which again might explain the ending. It's a very shocking headline. I never expected it, although it is good to see that WWE is willing to punish the big names, too. They are willing to stick to their guns on making sure that everybody's held to at least somewhat of the same standard when it comes to these wellness violations. So I don't know what Roman did exactly. I don't know what he tested positive for or what, but he got caught. He got suspended. Now, we'll see how everything plays out when he gets back. But definitely was not expecting to read that today, or any time in the near future, or no, I just didn't expect to read that at all. So so it looks like we're gonna have the next few episodes of Monday Night Raw without Roman Reigns. Awesome. Raw can only get better. Unless they turn Roman heel. I mean, they had a perfect opportunity to turn Roman heel the next night on Raw when he confronted Dean Ambrose. And they still can do that. I would prefer it if they did that and just turn Roman heel, because we all hate him anyway. Might as well just make him a heel and see if you can get some heat on him and do all that shit. But so those are my thoughts on Roman Reigns. A couple other things to talk about. I did see the AJ Styles Stone Cold Steve Austin podcast. I thought it was good. I thought AJ opened up and came across very naturally, and it was very cool to see him and Austin shooting the shit with each other. I thought Austin kind of focused on weird parts during the interview. Like, he really focused in on AJ's dad being an alcoholic and AJ's wife a little bit. And that's not really the stuff that I wanted to hear about. It was good that it was covered, but I felt like Austin just kept going back to AJ's dad being an alcoholic, which was really weird. It's like, Austin, we get it. It's like, come on, man. But they talked about TNA, which was very nice. I mean, that's obviously the bulk of... I mean, that's the most famous part of AJ's career, whether you like it or not. A lot of AJ's best work and his main rise to fame was through TNA. Again, for better or worse. And a lot of my favorite AJ Styles matches happened in TNA, obviously. I think his match with Samoa Joe at Turning Point '05 might be my number one favorite AJ Styles match of all time. And that covers a lot of ground, because I've loved AJ for years. A lot of his matches in New Japan, like the matches with Okada and Ibushi and Nakamura, were all very good. And, I mean, AJ's just been awesome everywhere he's ever been, whether it be TNA, Ring of Honor, New Japan, WWE, or whatever. So, but it was nice to get, like, a comprehensive, even if it was short. I mean, the podcast was less than an hour long. You got, like, AJ covering his whole career and how he got into wrestling and what his mind for the business is and all that stuff. So I thought the interview was very good, and I definitely wanted to highlight that. Another thing, I think I've mentioned this before, but I'll go ahead and say it now. I had been toying with the idea of attending Battleground. Battleground is in Washington, D.C. And I was toying around with the idea of taking a metro ride down to D.C. and seeing the show. My only reason for seeing it, at least last month, when I heard that Battleground was going to be in DC, my only reason to go see it was that I wanted to see Speak of the Devil. I wanted to see AJ Styles in person because I've been a huge fan of his for years and I've never seen him wrestle in person. I attended a TNA house show in 2008 hoping that AJ Styles would be on the card, and he wasn't, and I was kind of disappointed. I didn't know what the card was. I just heard TNA was in town. And I was actually visiting family in North Carolina at the time, and I just happened to drive by the venue, and there was a big billboard that said TNA is coming to this event on this day, and I was like, well, I'm going to be here the next few days. I can go see some TNA. And I hoped upon hope that AJ would be on the card, and he wasn't. And that was my only opportunity where I got somewhat close to attending a show where AJ Styles was on the card. So now I can now with Battleground coming, I'm assuming AJ is going to be on the card, even if he's probably just going to get fed to John Cena in the rematch. I get to see AJ Styles in person, so that was my main reason to want to go see Battleground, just to see AJ Styles perform live in person. But now that they've added the Shield triple threat as the main event of Battleground, Dean Ambrose defending his newly won WWE title, more on that later, against Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns, that's a big match, and I think that's a really cool main event to have. It's something that's been talked about for a long time, doing the Shield triple threat. It's been a rumored match at WrestleMania for the last couple of years. There had been rumors that it was the planned main event of 32. We'll never know if that was the case, but we're finally getting it at Battleground, and to me, it's like, all right, that's enough to get me to want to go see Battleground in person. So I'm going to go to Battleground. Haven't purchased my ticket yet, but I'm going to go to Battleground. Get myself a seat, get my popcorn and my beer, and enjoy some wrestling. It's going to be a good day in DC. So yeah, I'll be attending Battleground, my first WWE pay-per-view in over 3 years. The last one I attended was WrestleMania 29. Fortunately, I didn't have to take a really long road trip, and overall, I expect this show to have a little bit more bite to it than WrestleMania 29 did. The show where nothing happened. But, yeah, Battleground should be fun. And again, at the very least, I get a cool main event, and I get to see AJ Styles in person, which is really nice. So, moving right along from there, let's go into Money in the Bank 2016. I promised I was going to review the show today, and that's what I'm going to do right now. So, what did I think of Money in the Bank 2016? I liked it. I liked it a lot, actually. I think it was one of WWE's better pay-per-views in a long time. There was some dead weight on the undercard, and, not every... I don't think there was anything on this card that will go down as, one of my favorite matches of the year or anything like that. But from a booking standpoint, shit actually happened, and that shit was interesting, and it made me go, oh, cool. I'll remember that. I want to see where that story goes. Even things like the Divas tag match with Natalya's heel turn. I was like, oh, okay, character development. Something happened. They can do something with that. That's interesting. And it took kind of a nothing match and made it mean a little bit more and give it a little bit more context and a little bit more significance in the grand scheme of things. So Money in the Bank overall was a memorable and enjoyable show. And I don't say that about a lot of WWE pay-per-views. There are so many pay-per-views that I watch now where you just feel like nothing happened. Everything that Money in the Bank 2016 did right, WrestleMania 32 did wrong. It had a dull-ass main event with a guy I didn't like winning the title, and they didn't do anything to change it. The Wyatt family got buried. Bunch of, all the wrong guys went over, and it was just just a horribly booked show. Here, it's interesting shit actually happened. Guys I liked walked out on top in really exciting ways. And it was just overall a more interesting and memorable show that gave us plenty to talk about. And goddamn, did they need to spark something, because Raw has just been just so dry lately as far as presenting any kind of interesting feuds or storylines. But going over the card for Money in the Bank, I should note I did not see the pre-show. I was surprised to see that the two scheduled pre-show matches, Baron Corbin versus Ziggler and Apollo Crews versus Sheamus both got bumped to the main card in favor of Goldust and R-Truth versus Tyler Breeze and Fandango, which I'm sure was terrible because I'm sick of seeing those four guys in the ring together. I swear to God, and I used to like Tyler Breeze so much. Why did they ruin him? But I also heard they did Dudley Boys versus some Lucha Dragons, I think, which I'm sure the match was probably fine, at least, but didn't sound like anything worth going out of my way to check out the pre-show for. But I was also surprised that the pay-per-view went as long as it did. It was like 3.5 hours. Went a really long time, so I was a little surprised by that too. But with all of that said, let's jump into the actual card. Opening match was the four-way tag. It was the New Day defending their titles against the Vaudevillains, Enzo and Cass, and the Club. And overall, it was a pretty enjoyable match. Hot, action-packed opener. I had some of the kind of awkwardness and the clunkiness that's kind of inherent to these type of matches where it's just a car wreck and that's all it's going to be. But I like all four teams. I like all four teams, so that made it a little bit better. And the action was a little bit more coherent than we typically get out of these kind of matches. So overall, it was fun, enjoyable. New Day won, which I like because I hate title changes in these type of matches. I prefer that to happen in straight up 2 versus 2 or 1 versus 1 in singles titles. But overall, it was just a fun opener. I still wish they had done Enzo and Cass versus the Vaudevillains instead as like its own separate pay-per-view grudge match. I think that would have been a fun match to have. But they did it on Raw the next night, and it was fine. But I still would have preferred it as like a promoted big grudge match. That felt like a big deal. But anyway, moving on from there, I think it was Baron Corbin versus Dolph Ziggler. This match suffered from a couple of things. One, I've seen them wrestle each other way too many times, and I don't care anymore. And two, Dolph Ziggler's moves mean nothing, like the Famouser or the Super Kick, where I've only seen him won maybe 1 or 2 matches with the Super Kick, and he's never beaten anybody with the Famouser, and so much of the match was worked around Ziggler trying to hit those moves on Corbin, and Corbin kept powering out of them, and that was their basic story. It's like, all right, Ziggler's trying his damnedest to hit these moves, but Corbin keeps powering out of it. So once he does hit them, it'll be a big deal. And I was like, but Ziggler never wins with those moves anyway, so who cares? And so you had that problem going for it. I mean, a lot of the problems that I talk about with false finishes and big moves not meaning anything, Dolph Ziggler has probably suffered from that more than anybody. And I don't know if that's his fault, and I don't know if that's the booker or the agent's fault. But a lot of the moves in Dolph Ziggler's matches just don't mean anything because they're just there to get a 2 count. And after a while, that gets really old because you kind of get conditioned to accept that the move means nothing. That said, the match wasn't terrible. I didn't think it was an awful match. It was just something where the pre-existing booking kind of hurt it and kept it from being probably better than it should have been. Overall, I like Corbin. I'll just say that. I actually like Corbin. He did a couple of things in this match that I was like, yeah, that's cool. The fans were chanting boring at one point, and Corbin kind of played with it and managed to get the heat back on him. And I always like it when I can see guys do that. I think he's got such an asshole personality to go along with the character, to go along with the stories that he's acting out in the ring. And I think that can be used pretty effectively. Actually, to throw a TNA example in there, I thought Eli Drake did something similar at Slammiversary where he fell down by accident and the fans started laughing at him, and he kind of used it to his advantage and got the crowd to care about what he was doing. And Eli's done a few things like that where I go, maybe there's something more to that guy than people gave him credit. And I kind of feel that way about Corbin too. He's still got some rough edges, obviously. He's not like a finished product by any means, but for right now, I like him. I just hope they move him away from Dolph Ziggler and we can just move past this feud and do something different. But what was after this? I think it was the Divas tag, which, as I said, was kind of a nothing match. It was just typical stuff you'd see on Raw every week. It didn't really feel like that big of a deal. The Natalya heel turn was a legit shock and actually felt like, oh, she's frustrated and angry because she loses to Charlotte all the time, and now she's taking out her anger and frustrations on Becky Lynch. And now you have that feud set up. And it's like, cool, I'm fine with that. That's perfectly cool and a perfectly fine thing to do. And like I said, it made that match a little bit more meaningful and a little bit more memorable than it would have been without it. So, sorry, I hit something there. But overall, it was like the match itself was blah, but the post-match stuff was cool. I believe next was Apollo Crews versus Sheamus, or as I jokingly called the match, Bebop versus Rocksteady. I'll say it again. Rocksteady in TMNT Out of the Shadows might be the most fun that Sheamus has ever been. Ever. But, yeah, this match again... Apollo Crews needs a little something, and he could very easily turn into like the next Roman Reigns in a bad way, where he does some cool things and they expect people to like him, but there's not a whole lot of personality there, and he's just kind of a smiling doofus. I think the one-note personality, eventually fans are going to turn on that. He's obviously a great athletic specimen. Sheamus, like I said, he should probably stick to the movies because he is the most inherently uninteresting character in in wrestling. At least the most inherently uninteresting one to win a world title. Yeah, I mean, again, the match wasn't terrible. It was just kind of, it was there. It was there. I thought the finish was cool, where Sheamus hit the white noise off the top and got a 2 count, and he, while arguing with the ref, Apollo was able to get a quick roll up on him for the win. I thought that was kind of well done and well designed. But a match. It was filler. It's basically all I have to say about it. And now we're getting into the good stuff. The big matches was where this show I felt really, really delivered and really delivered some memorable stuff. AJ Styles versus John Cena. I mean, the atmosphere was insane. The crowd was obviously very into this match. It was very exciting to see. I liked the basic story of the match where AJ basically had an answer for everything that John Cena threw at him. So Cena looked a little rusty, which I felt enhanced the story. I don't know how much of that was him telling the story and how much... Well, keep hitting that thing. How much of it was him actually being rusty and it just benefited the story, I don't know. But Cena looked a little off balance and AJ looked like he was dancing circles around him, and I thought that really made for an exciting match and really made the match even better and more memorable, and really, I was really getting into it and really invested in it. I thought the match was very good. I really enjoyed it. The ending... I mean, I called it last week. I knew that the club was going to interfere, even though they did that whole contract signing segment, which ended up being completely pointless because they just interfered anyway. So who fucking cared? But I don't like it when they do stuff like that. When they say the heels can't cheat in this match, and then they just cheat anyway. So it's just the whole point of setting up matches where the heels can't possibly cheat is so that it clicks in the fan's brain that, oh, hey, this one's going to be a fair fight, so they're finally going to get their comeuppance. And, if you find ways to circumvent that, then it makes the whole exercise of making it, a non-cheating match feel completely pointless. But, there are worse things they could have done. At least they didn't do, like, a chair shot, 6 finishers, and, Big Show interfered, and 5 other guys interfered, and some of the other ridiculous bullshit that has happened in John Cena matches, where they just overbooked the holy fuck out of it. But no, they just kept it basic. Gallows and Anderson interfered, hit the Magic Killer, and then that was it. And I'm fine with it overall. I would have been fine with it if they hadn't done the contract signing segment on Raw, because what was the point of it then if they were just going to interfere anyway, with no repercussions at all whatsoever. But that said, I do prefer AJ going over, for sure, over Cena just beating him again. I hope to God they just don't do a rematch at the next pay-per-view and just have AJ eat the pin. And basically, I hope they don't do what they did with Kevin Owens. That's basically what I'm hoping for here. But for the one match, I thought was very exciting, had a main event, big match feel to it, and my guy went over, which is always nice. And overall, it was a very exciting match, and I was really happy with it. I would say, yeah, my favorite match on the show. And very good overall. I mean, AJ Styles has come along really, really well in WWE, and he's done much better than I thought he would. It hasn't been perfect, but there hasn't been that anti-outside company venom that was commonplace for a lot of outsiders coming into the WWE. The stuff that Daniel Bryan went through, and the stuff that a lot of the WCW guys went through, and Punk went through it a little bit, and all sorts of things where they just have to overcome this fucking mountain just because they managed to make a name for themselves outside of the WWE, which to me is stupid, because it's like, if you built a name for yourself outside of the WWE, then you have an established brand, you have fans already, and now those fans will theoretically become WWE fans, if they aren't already. You'll be getting those fans excited and keeping them happy because you signed one of their boys. So, but anyway, that's just my opinion on the matter. But yeah, I did enjoy this match, and I thought it was really, really good, really enjoyable, very good stuff all around. Next up was the Money in the Bank ladder match. Dean Ambrose taking on Chris Jericho, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, Alberto Del Rio. Did I miss anybody? Chris Jericho. Let's see. Ambrose, Jericho, Del Rio, Owens, Zayn, and Cesaro. That's who I forgot. Okay. How can I forget Cesaro? God damn, I'm stupid. You know my feelings on multi-man ladder matches, where I feel like, they're just car wreck matches and spot fest matches and whatever. And this match certainly was that, but the difference that Money in the Bank has is that the prize actually matters, so at least I care about the winner. And some of the spots in this were actually pretty sick, like the Michinoku driver on the side of the ladder on Kevin Owens, and they did some really cool things in this match to kind of raise it above the normal kind of pointless spot fest. And like I said, it wasn't pointless because the prize actually matters, and it had major storyline implications in the ending of the show, which was very cool. So it kind of felt like there was this ongoing story throughout the night rather than just everything being compartmentalized into its own little sections. There was actually like some connections between the matches that occurred on the show. Dean Ambrose won, obviously, and I'll talk more about that as I get into the main event. There was also Rusev versus Titus O'Neil, which was just filler, and nothing really happened there. So I guess we can just move on to the main event now. Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins. I thought it was a good match. Seth looked great. I mean, he looked like he hasn't missed a beat. Roman kind of worked heel a little bit in this match, which is probably for the best. I mean, come on, just make the guy heel. He'll be better. I thought the match maybe went a little too long, but overall was pretty good. Like I said, Seth looked incredible in there. Like I was amazed at how good a shape he was in, and for as long a layoff as he's had, for him to still be as good as he is pretty remarkable. I mean, that guy's an amazing athlete, and much to my surprise, he beat Roman Reigns clean. I mean, fuck, you can't get much more clean than that. I wish that the spear counter into the pedigree had been the finish. Because I thought that was a cooler visual to go on, and that happens a lot in a lot of matches where, like Cena and Batista at that one SummerSlam, where Batista turned a flying dropkick into the Batista bomb, and Cena kicked out, and then Batista just hit another Batista bomb to beat him, and I'm like, it would have been much more impactful if you had ended it on the counter into the Batista bomb. I think that would have been the more like, what the fuck just happened, and been a lot more exciting and a lot more satisfying of a finish, but. And I don't know why. I see that happen a lot now, that type of stuff. But and I wish they had done it here where Seth beat him on the first pedigree, because that was the one that had the cool counter going in. Just let that be the more climactic move. But, minor nitpick. Seth won, which was great. And I was like, oh, thank God. I was like, AJ won. Fucking Seth won. I'm in a real good mood right now. And I have to thank you guys. Because I did not see this show until Monday. I went the entire day without spoilers, and nobody spoiled it for me. And I did my best to avoid Facebook and Twitter, and I went on Twitter for a little bit, but I didn't see anything. So thank you guys for not spoiling anything for me. I really appreciate that. Dean Ambrose cashes in the Money in the Bank and wins the WWE World Heavyweight title. All the members of the Shield are now either current or former World Heavyweight champions. AJ Styles beat John Cena. Roman Reigns got suspended. I'm going to a WWE pay-per-view in DC. The dead rising from the grave. The seas are boiling over. Dogs and cats living together. Mass hysteria. This ending was nuts. I mean, when you do the Money in the Bank cash-in really well, it really leaves an impact. And this was a case where it was done really well. And all the story that goes into this with Dean Ambrose finally getting revenge on Seth for all the stuff that Seth had done to him and Roman. And this was like a very satisfying moment where Dean finally got that prick. And Dean now stands tall. He's not the guy outside looking in. He is now the current World Heavyweight Champion. And now everyone in the Shield has held that title. And it feels like a big deal because the Shield was such a dominant group that it feels natural that all three of them would be World Heavyweight Champion. And now we're getting the triple threat at the next pay-per-view, which should be pretty cool. Dean is a guy that the fans like. Dean is a guy that is very, charismatic and has an offbeat personality that sets him apart from the typical WWE babyface. I wish they'd cut back on the comedy with him a little and let him be more like kind of, what do I want? Like more intense, like more Austin-like in some ways. But for what he is, he's one of the more intriguing baby faces on the show, and he's way more intriguing than Roman. So, yes, I'll take Dean over Roman for World Heavyweight Champion any day. And yeah, it was a very exciting and cool ending to the pay-per-view. A pay-per-view that overall I thought was pretty good. The big matches were what really delivered. Like I said, AJ Cena was very good. The ladder match was cool. The main event was cool. And how they booked the main event was even better. Undercard kind of hit or miss, and some of the stuff was forgettable, but the big stuff that really needed to delivered big. And this is probably the first time that WWE has run a pay-per-view the same month as the NXT special, and the pay-per-view was at least comparable to the NXT special. In some ways did some things a little bit better, especially on the main event side of things. The main event of Money in the Bank was more memorable, if nothing else, if I had to compare the two. I thought Money in the Bank was an enjoyable show and probably the most I've enjoyed a WWE pay-per-view in a while. Hopefully I feel the same way when I go attend Battleground live and in person. We shall see. But, I think I've rambled on long enough. I think that's all I have for now. A couple of updates on future videos I have planned. My classic match review is coming. That might be the next video I do. I won't say what match it is. You'll have to tune into the video to find out. I know I had talked about doing my Star Wars reviews this month. Unfortunately, I think I'm going to be way too busy and I won't get to it this month. I will get to it in July, I promise. You will get my first Star Wars Expanded Universe review in a book review in July. I do promise. It will be coming, but I had to put it off because I've just I don't have enough time on my hands. I think that's all I've got for now. So until then, y'all have a good one.